A couple years back, I covered the third generation of the Mini Hatch, and I had a blast with that little F56 JCW model. Flash forward to now, and I get to cover the first generation of the rebirth of the Mini, the R53, a 2005 Mini Cooper S. I covered it some in the F56 JCW video, but I do want to cover the history of the Mini and the New Millennium rebirth with this 2005 Mini Cooper S. The Mini brand as a whole is more of kind of a fashionable little car from the United Kingdom. But when the Mini was first introduced in 1959, it would be the UK's take on the people's car. A people's car is and was a small, affordable car that would be at home on Europe's ancient and rebuilding streets post-World War II. However, it was before World War II where such a concept was originally conceived, as the Beetle would be developed in the 1930s and introduced in 1938 to give the German people a car that they could call their own, over the luxury cars the German automotive market was known for at the time. But following World War II, Europe was in ruins, quite literally. Everything needed to rebuild, and people's cars became a hot commodity due to their small size and affordability. Soon, almost every European country was producing their take on the people's car. Of course, the Volkswagen Beetle would lead the way for West Germany. Italy was also producing a small car, the Fiat 500 Topolino, but its 1930s design would finally get replaced with the modern Cinquecento in 1957. Sweden saw the Saab 92 in 1950, the Dutch got the DAF 600 in 1958, the French the Citroën 2 Chevaux, the Spanish saw the Seat 600, a rebadged Fiat 600, etc., etc., etc. Great Britain had a boom in automotive industry, but it was the British Motor Corporation's Mini that would proudly wave the Union Jack for the UK's small people's car. Introduced in 1959, the Mark I was a model that you can get as either an Austin or a Morris. With the Mark II, Rover, Leyland, Riley, and Wolseley models were added. The Mini was a British institution. It would soldier on for 7 generations until 2000. A couple replacements were developed using modern bodies and Mini underpinnings such as the Innocente Mini and the Austin Metro, but the Mini itself would outlive them all. With the British car industry merged upon itself into British Leyland in 1968 and suffering years of financial struggles, poor build quality, and tons of workforce strikes, it all collapsed in on itself in 1986 and emerged as the Rover Group. Things were still not good, so in came BMW, purchasing the Giant Company in 1994. But tried as BMW could, they could not save the ever-sinking ship and split up and sold off everything in 2000. But while Land Rover and Rover cars would find new homes, BMW kept Mini, as they had been developing a worthy successor to the original Mini since 1995, as well as Mini's plant in Cowley. Development was split between Rover and BMW. Rover wanted a subcompact economy car to replace the Rover 100, which in itself was an evolution of the old Metro. BMW, on the other hand, wanted a small sporty car. A concept was revealed in 1997, and by 1999, BMW's insistence had prevailed. The model would get a sporty direction, rather than an economy car for the masses. They were the money men, after all. Designed by Frank Stevenson, the new Mini was a modern design that capitalized on the retro craze at the time. Out of all the retro boomer-inspired designs that come out of the late 90s and early aughts, the reborn Mini is still one of my favorites. It doesn't fall into the blobby trappings of the new Beetle and the PT Cruiser, but instead it's almost timeless. I actually prefer this design over the third generation, which gets kind of bloated and cross-eyed with its refreshes. No, the first generation of the reborn Mini is a fantastic little design. Subtle nose design with an instantly recognizable face. The wheels pushed to the corners to emphasize good handling. Everything's just a chef's kiss. The first generation actually has 3 chassis codes. First up is the R50, which is the base hatch model, which America didn't get. Next up is the R52, which is reserved for convertible models. And last up is the R53, which is what this model is. The R53 is for Cooper and above models, which are sporty ones that BMW was excited for. Like the later Mini I covered in episode 65, BMW's designers loaded their reborn Mini with boatloads of quirks and features that screamed that it was achingly British. Easily the first thing I noticed upon this 2005 Cooper S pulling up was the Union Jack side mirrors. Upon closer inspection, I also discovered the Union Jack was incorporated into the side markers. The headlights are incorporated into the hood and lift with it as you raise it. Inside it gets incredibly quirky, as you're immediately drawn to the giant speedometer in the center stack, which is an ode to the original 1959 speedometer location. Although that one's, a lot smaller. The giant speedo was optional, by the way, as there was a chrono pack that included 4 normal gauges in it like a watch. The window and door switches are these racing-inspired switches at the bottom of the center stack. The dash has this brushed metal look to further this racing inspiration. And why does this wiper stock have the red bit? I don't get it. Other quirks include the fact that the hood lever is under the dash on the right side of the vehicle, which is probably a cost-saving measure so they didn't have to move that into the left-hand drive models. Cup holders, incredibly small and borderline useless for anything other than cans of soda. Did I mention that this was a Cooper S? Well, the car doesn't let you forget that and includes that badge everywhere inside. Under the hood of this 2005 Mini Cooper S is a supercharged 1.6-liter Tritec 4-banger. The Tritec is an interesting engine as it was a joint venture between Chrysler and Rover, and would be built in a new factory located in Curitiba, Brazil. The name Tritec was to represent the union of the 3 nations involved, the UK, Germany, and Brazil. When it came to the second generation of Mini, BMW would leave this partnership, and Fiat would take over the plant. On the Cooper S model, the big ol' Eaton M45 supercharger is slapped on top, as well as this big ol' intercooler. Power from the S is 160 horsepower and 150 foot-pounds of torque, but that model is bumped up substantially on the John Cooper Works model, which produced 218 horsepower and 184 foot-pounds of torque. The supercharged Tritec landed the International Engine of the Year award in 2003 and made Ward's 10 best engines list for the year. Behind the Tritec for Cooper S models were either the Getrag G285 5-speed manual like in this car, or the Aisin 6F21 WA 6-speed auto that included paddle shifters for a manual mode. Because of the size of the supercharger on Cooper S models, the battery has been relocated to the rear where the spare tire normally goes. Because there was now no room for a spare tire, Cooper S models were originally sold with front flat tires. Overall, this is a fantastically fun little car. Out of all the reborn Minis, the first generation ones are probably my favorite. They're just the perfect size of what I would expect a Mini to be, and I will die on that hill. Is interior space cramped? Slightly? Yes, it's a Mini. The seats are just a tad on the small size, especially for an overweight, tall American like myself. But it's not bad, and there's definitely more driver space compared to that of a Miata. Passenger side footwell is a little narrow, but it's not terrible. Of course, I climbed into the back of this Mini to get a tall guy backseat review, and it's not for a full-size adult. I mean, I can get back there okay, and with the front seat pushed forward from its furthest setting, I guess I have okay leg room, but I have absolutely zero headroom. Cargo space is cramped. Now the back seats do fold flat, and that's a huge plus. The owner, Tyler, says that he's hauling wood boards a lot back there for carpentry projects. So with the back seats folded down, it does have room, and it is practical. On the road, the 2005 Mini Cooper S is exactly as fun as you would expect it to be. An absolute joy on country roads. The supercharged 4 burping and gurgling with glee, and the perfect combination of weight and small size that begs you to toss it into every corner with anger. The light weight of the 2,600 pounds and its small size means that, like the original Mini, you can pretend you're recreating an old British touring car race at every moment. I know that I've been a huge proponent of slow car fast, but this car isn't slow. It's the fact that its small size and light weight actually makes for a beautiful cocktail of handling, and the supercharger slapped on top of the Tritec is simply the Coke-infused cherry on top. Yeah, I do have a few gripes, but they can probably be attributed to this 18-year-old car with 105,000 miles. To get it into reverse, you slam it through a detent to the left and slide the shifter up into reverse. Normally this isn't an issue as the detent is there to prevent you from doing so at speed. However, this car is old and slightly beat up, and I found myself downshifting and thinking I'm dropping into first on hills, but immediately knowing that the shifter went too far to the left, and if I were to continue with what I was doing, there was going to be a very bad time. The owner Tyler agrees that the detent is probably just very worn out, as he had experience as a teenager learning to drive on his grandmother's R53 Mini, and this was not a problem in that car. Other than that, I found first gear kind of weak. It just didn't have enough torque from a stop to really give it the beans like I would have liked, but other than that, the car is an absolute hoot to drive. The owner Tyler purchased this 2005 Mini Cooper S in the fall of 2022 when he grew tired of his previous vehicle, the 2021 Jeep Gladiator Sport, as seen in Wookie Drive's number 72. The Gladiator, while quirky, just wasn't him, and he ended up finding this R53 Mini at a decent price and jumping at it. He bought it from a Romanian lady in Charlotte who was arguing with her husband on whether or not her next car was going to be in manual or automatic. She wanted the stick, by the way. Being an 18-year-old British car, it does have some quirks that the previous owners have done to it. The first thing you notice are the rally lights mounted to the front bumper. Unfortunately, every single one of them has its lens smashed. But the owner's description of the lights' rat's nest wiring leaves some craftsmanship to be desired. Another thing someone did was plastidip all of the exterior chrome at some point. Enough that you do find some cases of overspray, such as on the red tow hook. And finally, my favorite model of this car was the shag carpet headliner. Why? It's simply incredible. This is something I would expect to find in an old Impala or Cadillac, but not a Mini. Tyler and I spent much of the review making Russell Brand furry walls references and jokes. Just a fun little detail that I absolutely adored. Now, when buying a first-gen Mini, keep in mind that these things are temperamental with age, and there are things to keep an eye out for. Facelift models from 2005 have improved mechanical bits, such as the supercharger having Teflon-coated blades to improve durability, more burbly exhaust, and improved window regulators and center lock and switch solenoids. They also like to rust where the steel bodies meet the plastic trim moldings as well, which is something common with 2000s cars. And they leak oil. From valve cover gaskets, which is an easy fix, to the crank position sensor, which requires you to remove the radiator to access. At least it's not the cam position sensor, which requires the removal of the motor mount to get to an access. Then there's the 100,000-mile supercharger service, which pretty much requires the complete assembly of the front of the car. And finally, the power steering pumps are a common fail point, and they like to get noisier as time goes on. The first generation Mini was a fun little car, and the perfect modern return for the storied nameplate. It was such a success that BMW was able to launch an entire line of cars under the Mini brand, similar to what BMC was doing in the 1960s. It's an absolute hoot to drive, and perfectly encapsulates what the original was doing, but from a car company of the new millennium. Are they cramped? Slightly. Are they temperamental? What British car isn't? But the R53 Mini is a driving experience that I will put up there with the Miata. You just have to drive one once in your life if you're a car guy or gal. They are a unique experience, and I highly recommend anyone to have a go in one. It's a Mini, and a damn good one at that. 2005 Mini Cooper S, the rebirth of the famous nameplate. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you once again for watching another episode of Wookie Drives. Huge shout out to Tyler of Lincolnton, North Carolina for once again letting me drive one of his cars for this show. If you have a car or truck that you'd like to see on the show and happen to be in the Charlotte or Mooresville, North Carolina area, feel free to email me with your submission at wookiedrives@gmail.com. That's right, submit your car to wookiedrives@gmail.com. Once again, that is wookiedrives@gmail.com. Don't forget to give the video a like, drop a comment with some feedback. Any sort of feedback and interaction really helps the small channel grow. Share with all your Mini Cooper friends. And finally, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell for notifications for more Wookie Drives like these. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.